Good evening and welcome to you. I hope you had a nice little break and time for integration. During this retreat, many of you, of course, were here, and some just joining for Satsang. So, however you're joining, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'd like to share just a funny little story, as we begin tonight about spiritual integration. And so sometimes you go on retreats and you get blasted wide open, and we can get a little bit ungrounded, especially right after a retreat. And so this afternoon I was, sitting here at my desk just doing a little video editing, and I was doing a couple of different things at the same time, wasn't fully grounded. I reached for my glass of water, and like a gorilla, I knocked it over, and it spilled into my boot, so filled up my boot with water, and then the glass fell on the ground and just shattered all over the place. But hold on, that's not all of it. That's not all of it. About 20 minutes ago, I was doing some dishes, just trying to help my wife, get the place cleaned up, because I've been with you all this weekend, and there was a big pile of dishes, and I was getting to work, and there's this big knife, like this long, just a giant knife, and I don't know what happened, but that knife fell and went right through my shoe, and luckily it just poked me in the foot. Luckily it just poked me in my foot, and my wife told me, "You get out of here. You get out of here. You go get grounded. I'm sending you off to the desert. You need to go lay under the moon. You need to get grounded." And so it's just a funny thing sometimes being human. Now, I know many folks on the path, when bad things happen, they think that God is attempting to punish them, trying to make them pay for their sins. And I can tell you this, I'm not blaming God for any of this. I'm going to say, just a basic thing that commonly happens after a retreat. We can get into little accidents, or break a glass, or run into a wall, or whatever it is. Just be careful. Get real grounded. I tried to do a good job today. I took my daughter to the hot springs today, but it didn't fully ground me. It didn't fully ground me. I'm here busy getting in trouble. So anyways, I just wanted to make y'all smile a little bit. So I have a lot to share. Many of you have sent me emails, and I couldn't keep up with all of them on the retreat. But, before I get into the teachings, just get on with the announcements. So if anyone's super excited to join me in the Bahamas at the end of the month, I will be there. And I guess that's, just 30 days from now. Be at the Shivananda Ashram in the Bahamas for the Spiritual Awakening Symposium. And the other thing we have on the list is Kripalu this summer, mid-July. And details for both are on my website. Okay, I did that. So we've been exploring the 7 chakras, and it's important for us to acknowledge that our chakras are always communicating to us. They're always speaking to us in one form or another. And you might notice this, that before you have to give a talk or a speech, or if you show up for a job interview, and there might be some level of fear in your hara and some level of fear in your throat chakra. And you might show up for the job interview, or you might have to have an important conversation with somebody, and you might notice this grip in the throat and in the hara. And so this is your 2 chakra centers here talking to you, saying, hey, you're not fully empowered. You're not fully trusting. And so a big part of this retreat and this training in the chakra centers is for us to have an ongoing awareness of the 7 chakras within the subtle energetic body, and just noticing, like, what is happening within me. And of course, with the training, that we received on the retreat, when the belly, when the hara grips, it'll give you some insight. Well, okay, what does the hara have to do with? It has to do often with our place in the world, with insecurities in relationship, insecurities around work or finance. What does the throat chakra have to do with? Well, again, insecurities in expression. Now, if the chakra is fully open and you're speaking with truth and power, well, there's no problem there. That's great. That's great. You'll just feel a sense of radiance, a sense of resonance there. And you'll be smiling, just knowing that all is well. At different moments on your path, you'll find God putting pressure on a particular chakra center. And that's God telling you, hey, you need to spend some time inquiring into that center and asking what is going on here. And again, with the training, you'll have something to refer to. If there's pressure in the root chakra, it's like, okay, well, what is that about? If I sit and I open, is this Kundalini waking up in me? Is this God telling me I need to get more grounded? Or is there a light coming into me and waking up, showing me, revealing to me the ground of being? And so the mistake that many people make with chakras, this is just all day long, you see people talking about this on the internet, on forums and this and that. I don't really engage with forums, but all kinds of people tell me, they were on this forum or that forum, and they're attempting to get the Kundalini or to get, the energies of spiritual awakening to flow through all 7 chakra centers. And very specifically, I need the energy to blast through the crown, because once it does, then I will be enlightened. And come on, almost all of us here have been able, or have forced at one point or another, the energy through all 7 chakra centers. And of course, what we find is it's a very unifying experience when it's done by grace. But the thing that a lot of, again, this is a young male mistake, is, okay, I need to force the energy up the spine, and I need to say this mantra and do this breath. And once, it blasts through the crown, well, then I'm going to be enlightened. And everyone's going to bow before me and love me, and I'll have the perfect partner and $1 million. And again, like, these are amateur amateur views of spiritual awakening. We don't awaken through force. We can certainly move energy through the chakra centers with force. And often we see healers doing this, trying to force something on us, force something through us. And again, this just tends to end in some level of disaster. And so as we continue to open and work with the chakras, I invite you just to have a basic level of awake awareness throughout the body and just noticing. And you can notice right now, we just did this retreat and we went very quickly, very swiftly through the 7 chakras. We covered it in a weekend. But I invite you to notice right now Well, which chakra is lighting up? What are you feeling? What are you noticing? And as we sit in satsang, you might notice, well, gosh, Craig, all 7 chakras are lighting up. I'm just feeling like I'm radiating with light. And we say, okay, great, perfect, beautiful, beautiful. And so then we can ask again, like, do any chakras have pressure within them? Does it feel like there's a mini war going on? A war between the energies of grace, or the energies of awakening, and the energies of resistance. And of course, if we have resistance, let us soften here. Let us begin to melt and trust. And for whichever chakra, you're working on, or whichever chakra has pressure in it, you can ask a very specific question. Or a very general question, like, well, what do you need? How can I help? What needs to change so we can soften here? What needs to change? What needs to release? For most chakras, we can ask, do I trust? Do I trust? But say, for example, if you have congestion in the throat chakra, you can ask, am I judging myself? Is there some level of fear here around expression? Am I worried about what other people will think? And so that's a common thing, again, in the throat and in the hara. Are we worried about what other people will think if we are, if we express, again, that's going to be in the throat, or if we are fully ourself, that's going to be more of a hara issue. Am I worried? Am I concerned that if I allow myself to be fully who and what it is that I am, and I go out onto the stage of life and I say, ta-da, here I am, world. What you see is what you get. And the world throws tomatoes, and they might, because sometimes the world says, oh, I don't know this new and enlightened version of you. I know you as my younger brother, my younger sister. I know you as my ex. Or I know you as, the one that got in trouble once upon a time. I know you as the addict or the crook. And you'll see this, that the world, they're not always up to date with where you are at on the path. Like the world isn't always ready to honor us. Normally what the world does is they make a judgment about who and what it is that we are. And they might hold on to that judgment, for 20 or 30 years. I can say this, I'll just tell a funny story. Once upon a time I was a high school teacher. And shortly before I was a high school teacher, there was this movie, called Friday. And it's a hilarious comedy, about these hood rats, who were living in Compton, in LA. And they go around town, smoking pot and getting in all kinds of trouble. But the main character, come on, someone straighten me out. Ice-T or Ice Cube. I always get those two fellows mixed up, and please forgive me, guys. But one of them, his character in the movie was called Craig. And so, when I was a high school teacher, all the young high school boys called me Brother Craig. And there was this line in the movie, "Are you high, Craig?" And so I can still walk around, this little town that I live in. And when I run into some of those old high school students, they still refer to me, as Brother Craig, the one who's getting high. And it's like, I wasn't in the movie. I didn't grow up in Compton. Like, that's not me. That's not me. My name's not Ice-T, and it's not Ice Cube either. And so, it's just a funny thing that these kids, now they're adults. They're in their 40s. Just to, tell you how old I am. It's like they're in their 40s, and they're still saying this to me. Still seeing me, as that young high school teacher. And they're just making fun of me. They're seeing me as this goofy young guy. And, often in life, people will just continue to project the past onto you. And when they do that, you will probably notice some level of reaction in your chakra centers. Now, if we're really awake, the reaction in, let's say, the heart chakra might be, if someone projects something negative on you, your heart chakra, if you're really awake, you might smile and forgive them. And just know, okay, they're still living on the wheel of samsara. No big deal. They're going to continue projecting. I don't need to stop this. I'm just going to let it roll off my back. Like water off a duck's back. Just let it roll. But if we aren't enlightened, if we're not deeply accepting, you might find this grip in the solar plexus. How dare they say that about me? They don't know who it is that I am. They don't know that I'm awake now. And again, like our solar plexus chakra can get really offended. Really offended. Why do they say that about me? And can get really hurt. And if you notice that, oh, look, my solar plexus chakra is flaring up. It's relating to the world on the level of ego. It's relating to the world in the realm of praise and blame. Maybe, just maybe, I need to relax. Maybe I need to let go. But if you're really in your solar plexus, egoic manifestation, you'll say, no, I need to go show them. I need to correct them. I need to speak my truth. Speak my truth. And that's a big thing with the solar plexus chakra is, as people start to evolve on the path, and this is really egoic evolution, we go around and we think we need to tell everyone how we're thinking, what we're thinking and how we're feeling all the time. And people call this being authentic. And I laugh at that when people say, I'm going to be really authentic now. And it's like, okay, they're getting ready to tell me how their ego is feeling. And here I am, I'm laughing, but because I'm a spiritual teacher, I'm laughing because I see this as an ego dance. Now for them, that might be a big step forward, just from being totally unconscious to coming into knowing their ego and expressing their ego. And again, that's great. That's great. You're going to run into this all the time. But we need to be crystal clear here. That is not enlightened communication. That's maybe we could call it healthy ego expression. And in an evolutionary world, that's a thing. We go from being unconscious to developing our ego. And then the further we walk on the spiritual path, we let go of our ego. And as we let go of the ego, you'll find that higher expressions of divinity move through you. So again, a higher expression of the third chakra center when someone's being egoically authentic with you, a higher expression might be, oh, okay, I'm just going to sit here and listen. I'm going to hold the space of love. I totally know who and what it is that I am. And this person, they're doing their ego dance. I don't need to worry so much about them. I can be the Buddha and just listen, because I am deeply secure within my being. I don't need to correct them. I don't need to fight with them. I don't need to argue. I can just smile and nod my head. And I might even say, "Oh, you go, girl," or "You got this, man. All right, I hear you. I hear you, brother." You can give them one of those, and then gently, give them a namaste. Namaste. I'm going to head out now. And so I hope through this retreat, I'll be sending out those recordings, and you can listen again and study the recordings, study the teachings. Because you'll find out, all throughout your day, as you engage with the world, or even if you sit in silence, various chakra centers will be lighting up at different times. That there's many mornings when I wake up and I'm just in a space of sleepiness, but also deep peace. It's the kind of peace that, is close to samadhi, where it's okay, nothing's going to be happening here with this deep peace. And so there's times when I have to kind of kickstart, again, my third chakra center, and invoke some will, invoke some energy, because I need to get up and I need to get moving. I need to help out with, getting my daughter off to school and this and that. Or I might need to, what I really do is I get up really early. So I get up and I get my butt meditating and I start doing some yoga. But I need to get up and take care of myself first, so then I can attend to my daughter. So I'm going to, make the coffee for my wife. I don't drink any coffee, but she certainly loves it. So it's okay, I need to kick my will into gear. And when we have a chakra mastery, you can call upon different aspects of yourself at different times on the path. And so I hope there's something there helpful for you. Now I want to get into a couple questions, and I'd like to leave some time for meditation. Okay. Here's a question that came in from Kay. Hi, Craig. Since Kundalini awakening, I get lined up all my fears in my dreams a couple times a week. Okay. On this retreat, I had dreams about a fear I have of going crazy. This time, because of this retreat, he put that in parentheses, it's rooted in a fear in me because my father had mental issues. This is good. And so right here, what Kay's doing is describing a projection. So we might have a father, who's has some issues. And then we look at that ancestral karma. We look at our father. We live with him, or once upon a time we lived with him. And then we project his confusion onto ourself. And so right away, I want to press the pause button and just ask everyone, do any of you here do this? Do any of you here have a difficult father or difficult mother? Or had a difficult father or mother? Sometimes they're already in heaven. And do you see their issues, and have you ever projected those upon yourself? Now, I can nod my head for many of you because I've worked with a number of you here, most of you here. I can nod my head for my own self, this is a very human thing. Okay, so Kay's not alone. It's very common here. I have two questions about it, Craig. A part of me knows this is my shadow. Another part of me is saying, don't meditate too much. I'm curious how to proceed. And I think what Kay is trying to say is, if I meditate too much, there's the potential that a lot of energy will move through my body, and it might challenge me with really intense spiritual states, which may remind me or bring up fears of going crazy. Again, just to map that out a little bit, many of us on the path of awakening will be pushed to the brink of our sanity. And when we're pushed to the brink of our sanity, because of divine pressures, because of just the energies of enlightenment, the energies of awakening, the energies of old wounds coming forward. Sometimes when there's a lot of light, there can be racing thoughts and this and that. There's this fear that I might go crazy. And if I meditate a lot, I might stir the pot. And so his question is, well, I'm curious how to proceed. And many of you have asked me a similar question to this in one form or another, like how much meditation is too much. Now, we're asking a spiritual teacher here, so I say let's meditate as much as you possibly can. Still go to work, pay your bills, be grounded, be in your relationships. But I'm a big fan of meditation. And I assume that anyone who is here in satsang, anyone who is here showing up on retreat, they're showing up on retreat because they want to awaken. And if you want to awaken, we're going to face many fears, and we're going to face many shadows. And I'd say that's just par for the course. That's just how it works. And so God is inviting you to look at these shadows. God is inviting you to look at these fears. This is a good thing. This is a good thing. If you find yourself on the edge of going crazy, what is going crazy? How do we say it? We say, I'm losing my mind. What is nondual spiritual awakening? It is losing your mind. But we are losing our mind. We're letting go of the mind. And we're stepping into a realm, an ocean of great freedom, great light, great love, and great sanity. Great sanity. Now, I used to have this quote, down once upon a time. I don't know who said it. Somebody said it. The difference, between the schizophrenic and the awakened one. So the difference between the schizophrenic and the awakened one is they travel through the same worlds. They travel through the same ocean. But while the schizophrenic sinks, the schizophrenic drowns in this ocean of freedom, the spiritually awake one, they tread water with ease. With ease. And I didn't get that quote just right. But you get the idea. You get the idea of it. But that's the sense. That's the sense. And I've worked with many people, especially, as I was beginning my therapy practice, I worked with many individuals who were blasted wide open. And while being blasted wide open, they started to believe every single thought in their head. They believed every fear. And this led to intense paranoia. And, then they got lost in it. But when I sat with them, as I felt into their presence, I felt this sense of spaciousness. I felt a great light and a sense of freedom. But in that space, they made the wrong choice. Most cult leaders, they might start off like semi-awake, a little bit awake. They might have, some kind of divine energy flowing through them. And then they make this mistake of believing every thought they think, believing every fear. And so when we're on this path, we have to have a very basic Zen-like commitment. It's the third eye thing, for those of you on the chakra retreat, because everything has to do with the chakras, right? This is the third eye thing, is we see through thoughts. We realize all thoughts are empty. All thoughts are empty. I choose what to believe in. And on the path of awakening, we only believe in thoughts that are actually the truth. We don't believe in projection. We don't believe in fear. We don't believe in projected fear. We don't believe in this thought that I'm going to go insane. We see insanity. We might see insanity, and anyone, if they're deeply honest, you spend enough time in meditation, you realize very quickly, oh yeah, my mind is crazy. Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy, yeah. And so is everyone else's mind. You just turn on the news, you see it's crazy, we're going to war again. It's like, this is crazy. It's just crazy. But the awakened one says, I'm not engaging with the insanity. And when you don't engage, when you take a big backward step and you rest down in the root chakra, thoughts begin to cease. And so here we are now swimming in this ocean of freedom. But if we choose to believe our thoughts or to fear our thoughts, or to fear fear itself, we start to become paranoid. And we can literally make ourselves crazy. In fact, I started to have this experience when I was 14. These divine energies started waking up in me. I was having big spiritual experiences. I didn't have a Zen teacher at the time. I hadn't met my teacher yet. And this thought started arising in my consciousness. You are going crazy. Craig, you're crazy. You're losing your mind. You're losing your grip on reality. And let me tell you, I started to believe these thoughts. And I will even tell you that it was kind of fun to dance with insanity. I actually got off on it a little bit. I was like, yeah, wow, I'm crazy. And I'd allow myself to be crazy and to say crazy things and think crazy thoughts. And, at some point I was like, oh, this isn't going to end well. This isn't going to end well. It's not going to end well. And I had a really stern father too. So no one in my house was going to let me get that crazy. They were going to whip me into shape real quick, And so I received feedback from the people around me. You can't behave that way. And that was good feedback. It wasn't repressive feedback. It was good. They were straightening me out. And if you have good friends on the path, if you get a little nutty, your friends will straighten you out. Say, hey, get a little nutty here. Seems like you're getting carried away with these thoughts. Seems like you're being a little bit manic. Maybe you need to chill out a little bit. But chilling out doesn't mean we stop meditating. Chilling out doesn't mean we stop walking forward on the spiritual path. Chilling out might mean we focus more on peace and focus less on arising fear or fearful thoughts about going crazy. I'd call that'd be a fantasy type of thinking. And so at any moment on the path, it's important for us to stop and to really check in. Am I believing my thoughts? Am I believing my fears? And if so, let's take a big backward step. Okay. The other thing that Kay wrote here is he said, he noticed that this was his shadow, and when you see your shadow coming forward, it can be very helpful to do some work, some shadow work, with a counselor, with a therapist, with a teacher, or do shadow work with a friend. And a good, wise, spiritual friend. Not just any old friend, because sometimes our friends, like, if we try to process with them, it can get really messy. But, to work with a friend, and maybe to work with spiritual inquiry with a friend, to do some shadow work there. Inviting that shadow to come forward, to be seen, to speak, and to really acknowledge it, because once you start acknowledging it and bringing it into the light, well, then that shadow doesn't live in the unconscious. It'll have much less power over you as you bring it into the light. Okay. Here's a question that came up. This was from Justina. So earlier today we were speaking about evil. I mentioned evil. And whenever I do, it always raises some eyebrows. But let's go with Justina's question. Speaking of evil, why do some people reject heaven? Is it because of pain or trauma? I'm also curious about demons and how they became demons, and if they ever get redeemed back to the light. Yeah, this is a great question. This is kind of fun. Why do some beings reject heaven? That's another way of asking. Why do some beings reject the light? It's almost always because they get seduced by power. And, she goes on to answer the question, is it because of pain and trauma? Yeah. And so, I just want to talk about the Grinch. The Grinch. So the Grinch, I can't remember what happened to the Grinch, but let's just say his mom and dad left him in an orphanage. I think that's what happened with the Grinch. And so nobody loved him. And he never got to experience Christmas. And anytime Christmas came forward, he had a sense of anger because all the other kids in the world got to experience this wonder of family and, this tenderness of Jesus, and they got to receive presents and from Santa and this and that. And the Grinch didn't have that experience. He felt left out. And so what did he do? He rejected the light. And he said, I'm going to steal all the presents from all the Who's down in Whoville. and so when he did that, what happened to the Grinch? Well, his heart started to shrink. And then his heart became 2 sizes too small. 2 sizes too small. And I love talking about the Grinch because the Grinch is just a great archetypal story of people who reject the light. And why would we ever reject the light? It's because we're hurting. It's because we're suffering. And some of us, if we've been hurting and suffering, if we are jaded, and sometimes we try really hard on the spiritual path, and we experience defeat after defeat after defeat. And then, let's say Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars, he had so much defeat in his life, so much struggle. His mother, again, was killed. He didn't know who his father was. And he wasn't fully received by the Jedi Knights. And because he wasn't fully received, it left almost like a wound in him and this vacuum in him where he had all this power that he wanted to express. And the Jedis were encouraging him to be patient, to be really slow, letting him know he's not ready yet, to express his power as a Jedi. And in that vacuum, in that feeling of lack, a dark Sith came forward, that's the evil, that's the bad guys, and tempted him with power, unimaginable power. And he took the bait. He took the bait. And that's just what happens. And, it's important for us not to hate evil, because when we hate evil, well, we join in evil itself. And it takes great courage, great Christ-like courage. And so this is going to be a depth of love and forgiveness and understanding in the heart chakra. And it's also going to be a depth of strength, the solar plexus and the hara in the root, trusting that love will prevail. That whoever it is that we're working with or meeting with, if we continue to meet them with love and compassion, eventually love will prevail. And we're having faith in this. And when we have faith in the healing power of love, we stay in the light. But right now, like our country's trying to do this thing where we see, okay, there's this evil man named the Ayatollah. And so what are we going to do? We're going to go in there and we're going to kill him. We're going to bomb him. And in our arrogance, the generals are all talking to the president saying, we're going to use all these smart bombs, and these smart bombs are only going to blow up, the military bases and the leadership in Iran. And we see how this ends. We see how it ends. Yesterday there was the Iranians shot down a bomb that was coming toward them, so they were being defensive. And the fragments, of the missile that was shot down landed on a girls' school. And it's just heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. And I can tell you, like, if I'm the father and, someone, blew up my daughter and all the girls in the school, well, what am I going to do? I'm probably going to turn to terrorism. I'm going to fight back. I'm going to seek revenge. And you see that often, I'll just say this, that good people, well-intentioned people, have this idea, we're going to get rid of evil. And it just never works. I mean, George Bush said this thing, we're going to go in there and smoke them out, get all those evildoers. And, a couple million dead people later, and maimed and wounded children, and maimed, wounded veterans. I can't tell you how many veterans I've hung out with who, walk on those, prosthetic legs. I've been in a lot of swimming pools before. And there's guys in there, and, they take off their, titanium leg or whatever it is. And they hop in the pool and swim around a little bit. And then they get up out of that pool and they're like, give me a drink. I'm in pain. I'm suffering. I don't have all my limbs. I'm hurting. I have the horrors of war within me. And we see this time and time again. And so what's important for us is that we, as good spiritual beings, don't get seduced. Don't get seduced in fighting evil with war. And I know this is a tough conversation. Like, this is one of those things that we're not going to figure out right here. But I will certainly say we need boundaries. There needs to be rules and laws. There needs to be a way to deal with all of our narcissistic leaders that we have here on planet Earth. Far too many. But war is not the answer. It's never been the answer. It's never been the answer. It leads to such suffering. Such suffering. And people say, well, what about Hitler? And what about this? And what about that? at some point humanity needs to wake up to a greater way. And so, back to Justina's question. I'm also curious about demons and how they became demons. Okay, we covered that. And if they ever get redeemed back to the light. Yeah, of course it's possible to be redeemed back to the light. And all of us, I don't like to think of demons as actual things. I invite us to think about the demons in us. I've certainly been possessed at different times on the journey. And, I brought myself, God brought me through God's grace. I came back to the light. Many of us in this room have been addicts at one point on the journey. Addiction is a demon. And can that be redeemed? Oh, of course. So you're getting your power back. How do you get your power back? You choose the light. You choose truth. You choose love. These are all active manifestations of the chakra centers. We make the choice of truth, of love, of healing. We choose to have faith again. We choose to have faith again. It requires conscious choice, followed up, of course, by embodied action. And, those of us who've been addicts before, who've worked the steps, that's how you get your power back from the demon of addiction. And so, beautiful question, beautiful question. Okay. The last thing I'll just acknowledge is, many of you just wrote beautiful experiences that you were sharing on the retreat. And I just want to acknowledge that, I'm so proud of each of you showing up, giving of yourself. And I can see this depth of light, this depth of love moving through you. And it's such a beautiful thing to witness. There's something that, let me see if I can find it here. Oh yeah, from Janet. I just want to share this experience that Janet shared. At the root, this was from this morning's meditation on the root chakra. At the root, there was this bubbling, very black, thick, primordial goop. And when you explore the chakras, you'll notice all kinds of energies, all kinds of essences come forward. She goes on to write, it was alive, deep, primitive, juicy. She goes on to say, my heart continues to expand like a huge, hollow, safe cave, which is damp and cool. The best way to be in relationship with all of this. The best way to be in relationship with all of this is we're going to keep opening. So sometimes you open to this warmth and this peace, and you're like, okay, I understand this. This is beautiful. When you're in the root chakra, you might notice something deep, dark, and dense. Many people wrote about this nauseating just energy and kind of a density coming forward. And if we're good Buddhists, the teaching is you sit and you meditate and you open. And you allow whatever's here to unfold. Whatever's here to empty out. And so when it's a deep, dark, thick, primordial goop, we investigate this and we see, what is this? Is this an aspect of the ground of being through which everything is born? Or is this some deep, dense, old trauma, old pain, old sadness? And so we sit and we open and we investigate what's here. And this takes time, it takes willingness, it takes patience. But you begin to see that, through a period of time, the truth will be revealed. And we'll see, is this primordial goop, again, is it an aspect of the ocean of the ground of being? The great Prajnaparamita, from which everything is born? Or is this an old repressed trauma, an old addiction? Is it old feelings of abuse? Is it something from my past lives? What's here? And often when we see like there's darkness or thickness, or if it has a tar-like feeling to it, that's sticky and kind of murky, often that's going to connote like some level of old trauma and something that needs to be healed. But as you drop into it and you feel into it and you see, oh no, this is actually, it's like this dark, radiant ocean that was here at the beginning of time, out of which worlds are born. We say, okay, let's explore this. Let's open to this. Let's feel just the feeling of, the other day I was with my daughter and, she was studying like the galaxies and, there's this like deep, dark mass with light and this and that. And I said, sweetie, do you know what that is? And she said, yes, Dad. It's a nebula. That's where stars are born. That's where stars are born. I said, oh, that's right. That's incredible. But it was this big chaotic mess of like darkness and black holes and, exploding stars and brilliance and all these, flowing colors and this and that. And sometimes we see something and we think we know what it is if we judge it quickly. But through the path of awakening, the path of meditation, it takes some time to explore and to actually know what it is. Okay, so let's do this. Let us shut down our eyes. I'm going to have us all meet in the root chakra. So we're anchoring here in the root. And right away, you may notice this dark radiance. Just so silent. So silent and dense. It might feel as if we are in the center of the earth. And so we're just working with this question. Is God here? In this most humble aspect of your being, the root chakra, the pelvis, the perineum, feeling down the legs and the feet into the earth. We've all been taught that God is omnipresent. And so down in this lower aspect of our being, most dense chakra center, the root, is God here. And can I be here? Can I inhabit this center? Can I know myself? Not as simply a mind and an emotional nature, but what is it like when I know myself as this radiant darkness? And if you're sensitive, you'll notice that there's a flow of energy here. And feel like a deep, dark, radiant ocean. This primordial essence. And there's a few of you here who are tripping over the word darkness. And if that's you, I'm going to invite you to unhook from your mind and see for yourself if you need to be afraid. I'm going to invite us, instead of fear, to courageously open. Experiencing this primordial divinity. And as we open to the root, you'll notice it's so utterly silent, so impersonal. And yet, simultaneously, this immense, unified ground. And as you continue to breathe, you'll probably notice your hara lighting up. And so in the root it feels deep, dark, dense. This dark, radiant ocean. Completely impersonal. And as the hara wakes up, you may notice just a very subtle feeling of individuality. But an individuality that is not separate from this radiant ocean. It's actually a part of this ocean. And so right away we are awakening to this paradox of being an immense ocean. And yet this very subtle individual, an individual that feels indestructible. You may feel this power flowing up the spine. An intensification of light. And as we continue to open, you notice this energy. It's like this force of Shakti flowing up, the very ground, the ocean of being, through the root, through the hara, to the solar plexus, and here you may notice a radiant fire. And all this is happening by way of divine intelligence. We're just sitting, breathing, being open. Experiencing the movement of the divine. And it's starting to speed up, and the heart's starting to wake up. In fact, most of you probably feel all the cells of your being, all the cells of your body radiating with light. Softening more fully in the throat. As the throat opens, you might even notice almost like energy, like heaving through your throat chakra. Expanding, coming with a force, a power. As the energy comes into the third eye, you might notice it cooling, becoming deeply peaceful. Beginning to balance out as it flows up through the crown. There's a softening. And a harmonizing. And so I ask you, do you fully trust in God's will, God's intelligence? Do you trust that God is here, working fully and completely throughout your being? And throughout your life? And so can you soften more fully? Can you surrender and melt? Giving the energies of awakening full permission to take root within you, to take over your life, to live through your very humanity. And when you come into contact with resistance, throw it on the holy fire. Let it burn up in the light. Let it burn up in the light. Hari Om, Hari Om, Hari Om Tat Sat, Hari Om. May peace prevail. May we dedicate our lives to living the truth here on planet Earth. May we go forward with a renewed intention to be the light, to be the love, to be a healing presence here on planet Earth. May God's will prevail. May peace triumph. May the insanity of this world cease. And so much love and respect to each of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing your hearts with me. Thank you for showing up so fully on retreat. Let us go forward as divine warriors, living a life of truth, of love, of healing. God bless each of you. Glory be to God. Thank you all. Good night. So good to be with you.